This news right here involves a question. I want you to be honest with me. Is it okay to kill and eat an octopus? Think about it, decide your answer. Don't comment yet, and then see if you change your mind at all with this news story. Because the reason that we're talking about this today is because there's this plan to build the world's first ever industrial scale commercial octopus farm. With this coming from a Spanish seafood company called Nueva Pescanova. And its plan is to build the farm on over 500,000 square feet along a dock in the Canary Islands. Also, before you try to correct me, octopuses is actually the correct term, though octopi is also recognized and accepted. And hey, whether you prefer pusses or pie, God bless. Because again, the point of this story is this facility would produce octopuses in its own breeding system and keep them in communal tanks. And then, as they grow, the company would transfer them to bigger pools, with it specifically using the species of common octopus, also known as Octopus vulgaris. Because apparently, they're less picky eaters, so they're better suited for captivity. And the company is looking to harvest about 1 million of them every year, according to documents seen by the BBC. But all of this has to work just right, because octopuses are notoriously hard to breed. Because if you don't know, they're extremely solitary creatures, and they don't take kindly to being densely packed together in tanks, which is why previous attempts to farm them have ended in disaster, with them becoming aggressive and even self-mutilating or eating each other. Though also, notably, those farms weren't done at a commercial scale. And so you have Nueva Pescanova claiming it doesn't have those same problems. So the company argues that the fact that it's able to do it at all is proof that it's creating the right environment for them, or things like good water quality, temperature, and lighting. And so right now, you have the company fighting its way through a web of red tape, permits, and licensing requirements, including its biggest hurdle, an environmental impact assessment ordered by the Canary Islands government. Because critics argue that concentrated aquaculture, it produces pollution and disease that could contaminate the wider ocean, which is one reason why since 2019, when Nueva Pescanova first announced its plans, animal welfare groups have waged a protest war against the project, with a PETA activist telling NBC,
"The last thing we need is a factory farm where these intelligent, complex individuals are confined to a life of deprivation and misery."
So recently, another group sent a letter to the president of the Canary Islands urging him to oppose the farm, with around 75 organizations and experts signing that. But then on the other side, you have Nueva Pescanova putting forth several arguments in its favor. First, the worldwide demand for octopus is growing rapidly, so arguably the farm is only filling that need. And according to the company, the market, which is already valued at some $3 billion, that'll grow by over 20% from 2022 to 2028. Secondly, they say that octopus is a popular part of many cultural cuisines around the world, from Spain, Greece, and Portugal to Mexico and especially East Asia. And third, and this is one of the big ones, the company says that it will actually help conserve the species, because it claims that more seafood coming from the farm would ease fishing pressure on wild populations. But to all those, the critics have counter-arguments, saying that by increasing supply, the companies would bring down prices and actually increase demand, not just fill it. Also, they argue that culture is no excuse for cruelty, and regardless, cultures change all the time. And finally, saying even if the farm does reduce fishing for wild octopuses, they're carnivorous apex predators, so it'll need to feed them with something. And arguably, that creates the risk of overfishing other species like crabs and clam instead. Ben Williamson, the U.S. Director of Compassion and World Farming, telling NPR, it's estimated that it would take at least 3 pounds of wild-caught fish to produce 1 pound of farmed octopus. So it's completely unsustainable in that respect. But to that, Nueva Pescanova responded that it's already solved that problem, with the company saying it is a diet formulated based on byproducts and discards from fishing, as well as raw materials of marine origin certified as sustainable. Its efficacy and assimilation has already been demonstrated, and it is a circular economy solution that helps to avoid having to resort to fishing wild animals to feed the octopus. But there, sustainable or not, advocates argue that it is immoral to kill them, much less factory farm them, simply because they're so uniquely smart. With an evolutionary biologist telling the BBC, we have an example of an organism that has evolved to have an intelligence that is extremely comparable to ours. This is potentially how it would look if we were ever going to meet an intelligent alien from a different planet. Because if you didn't know, octopuses can use tools, solve puzzles, and even recognize human faces. They can also change their color and texture to camouflage themselves and even mimic other predators, with many not only trying to escape aquariums, but some actually succeeding. Hell, they even decorate their dens with shiny stones, shells, and other ornaments seemingly just for aesthetic purposes, or like just for the vibes, which, just fun fact, tell it at a party. That's actually what inspired the Beatles to write the song Octopus's Garden. But more to the point, a team of experts reviewed more than 300 scientific studies and concluded that octopuses feel pain, pleasure, and a range of emotions, which actually even led the UK to legally recognize them as sentient beings in 2022. And so for advocates, that makes Nueva Pescanova's project all the more concerning, right? Because the company actually plans to kill the animals by submerging them in water kept at around 26 degrees Fahrenheit, or in other words, freezing them to death, which is a method that many experts say is cruel, and they cite studies that show that it causes a slow and stressful death, with one professor saying it would be more humane to just club them over the head instead. But Nueva Pescanova, they claim that proper handling avoids any pain or suffering to the animal. And this is they also dispute whether these creatures are actually smart, saying in a statement to NPR, the fact that octopuses have evolved a strong ability to protect themselves against potential predators or environmental hazards due to their physiology does not make them more intelligent or sensitive than other animals. In fact, there is no scientifically validated knowledge about the, quote, intelligence of the octopus or whether it is more or less intelligent than other species already bred, with the company warning against projecting human traits onto the animal, which is something that octopus catchers like this one say we've been doing through modern culture.
We've anthropomorphized as the octopus through movies and other stories that are spread.
But for some people, intelligence isn't really what matters here. Or for them, what it ultimately boils down to was put best by John Oliver.
Octopuses are cool.
And so thanks to videos like his, numerous books, and documentaries like Netflix's My Octopus Teacher, octopuses have been having a bit of a moment, as NPR put it. You know, I kind of get it. These blue-blooded aliens, they have 3 hearts, 8 brains, depending how you look at it, and no skeleton, which means they can squeeze their gelatinous bodies through even the tiniest crack or hole, right? At least as long as it's wide enough for their beak, which is the only hard part of their body. Because 2/3 of their neurons are in their arms, they can multitask like a motherfucker. Also, when I say multitask, I don't just mean doing one thing with one arm and something else with another, which they do. I also mean that they both feel and taste with the same suction cups. Then on the other side of this debate, you have people saying, okay, I get they're fucking cool, but also octopus tastes real good. But whichever side of this debate you land on, pretty much everyone agrees that we need to better conserve this extraordinary species. Especially because today, humans catch 10 times the amount of octopus we did in 1950. With that, you can thank not just the enormous number of new mouths to feed, but also the staggering economic boom experienced in countries like China, Japan, and South Korea since the late 20th century. And then also, of course, you can't talk about declining marine ecosystems without mentioning climate change, which when it comes to octopuses specifically, they are especially sensitive to warming water temperatures. But with all of that said, it brings me back, 1, to the initial question that I asked you, as well as 2, what are your thoughts on this proposed octopus farm in particular?